Welcome to Questions with Father Luke. I'm Father Luke, and today's question is, do departed saints see us from heaven? Well, departed saints are in the presence of God. The Bible makes clear that they're in the presence of God, they're delighting in Him while they wait for Christ to return to earth and to establish His kingdom. And while I can't think of a passage that explicitly says departed saints are seeing us from heaven, I think it's appropriate for us to assume that they do. And I think this because we know where Jesus is, right? Jesus is at the Father's side. He is in the presence of God, and He sees us from heaven. The Bible makes very clear that He makes intercession for us. In the book of Hebrews, the book of Acts says that as Stephen, one of the first deacons, is being martyred, he looks up to heaven and he sees Jesus standing beside the Father, but looking down and seeing Him delight in the faithfulness of His servant. He's receiving Him with joy. And so from that standpoint, right, departed saints are really in the presence of God. Philippians, Paul says that to be with, to die right now is to be with God, right? So you're in the presence of God. They're not in some holding room or in a different place than where Jesus is. Jesus is there in the presence of God. He sees us from God's side. Should we not then think that departed believers can look down and see us? Obviously, Jesus is God, and so He's got a deity thing going on that nobody else does. But I think we can also say that the departed are part of this great throng, the cloud of witness that the author of Hebrews mentions in Hebrews chapter 12. In chapter 12, verses 1 and 2, he says, "Therefore, since we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses, let us also lay aside every weight and sin which clings so closely, and let us run with endurance the race that is set before us. Let's look to Jesus, the founder and perfecter of our faith, who for the joy that was set before Him endured the cross, despising the shame, and is seated at the right hand of the throne of God." Now, this chapter comes just after the famous chapter on faith, the heroes of the faith, where he lays out all of these different people who, in faith that God had spoken to them, in faith that God was leading the way, making provision, that they hoped for and longed for Jesus who was coming. And so the imagery is that this crowd, we've got this whole cloud of witnesses, these people who've gone before us, and they're cheering us on as we live our lives, as we are running our own races. And as far as that can bring us encouragement and joy to think, this loved one of mine who passed away following Jesus, they're cheering me on, then I think that's great. That can encourage us, and we can hold on to that. But because the Bible doesn't get real specific about what they're doing, the departed saints are doing, as far as we know Jesus is making intercession for us. Are they praying for us? It doesn't specifically say that sort of thing. We know that they are longing for God to return and for Him to redeem fully the world and to judge those who need to be judged. I think we have to be cautious about trying to make a real hard, stringent kind of doctrinal, theological statement about that, about our departed saints. We know that they are there and their lives meant so much here on earth. And in fact, in our prayers of the people, we say, God, we thank You for those who departed, living faithfully, so that we can, as we remember them, we remember their faithfulness to You, and it's an example for us. And we know somehow, I think through texts like the Hebrews chapter 12, that they are surrounding us, cheering us on as we live our life in the faith. Great question. If you have more, drop them in the comment section or come and visit us and let's connect on a Sunday morning.